What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video here. And now we're going to do something very, very different. So let me start off by saying a few things. While I am away on vacation, there are a few days here where I'm really not doing much. And even though I do have some internet issues, I thought that we could still very easily do an Under the Microscope series. Because for those, I don't go into a league. And therefore, I can always go and redo the game that was supposed to be one of the three matches. So with that said, I'm still going to do my best here to bring you guys some content. And moving forward, this content is going to be a little different from what I normally do. So for those of you that have been watching me, every week or so, you'll know that I do a lot of modern videos. And while I love modern, it's my main format. Grand Prix Washington, D.C. is coming up, I think, on the weekend of September 1st. So it's right, I live in Maryland, so it's going to be very close to me, and I'm going to go drive down there with a few friends, and hopefully we can do well in that tournament. So, with that said, you got to prepare well for standard, right? Because the format is both diverse, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that you have to keep in mind regarding the top decks. So, while I'm not someone that normally net decks, this is why you'll see this deck right here being played. So let's talk about the deck, right? So I am playing a deck that I call Bant Approach. Bant because it uses white, blue, and green as its three main colors, and Approach because it wins through casting Approach of the Second Sun. So let's read the card, of course. If Approach of the Second Sun was cast from your hand and you've cast another spell named Approach of the Second Sun this game, you win the game. Otherwise, put Approach of the Second Sun into its owner's library, 7th from the top, and you gain 7 life. So what does that mean? It basically means if you cast this spell twice in a game, you win. And that's basically how the deck is designed to win. And it doesn't need more than 2 of them in the deck, right? It's a 7-mana spell. It gets put in the back of your deck after you cast it, and most decks have very little ways to interact with it, right? So ideally, it's a pretty strong win con for a deck that, has to be designed around it. So now let's talk about the design around the deck, right? So the main reason, and I will say the biggest reason we're playing green, because of course this deck can actually you can just play blue-white. You don't need the green. But I like green, first of all, because of Rogue Refiner. This card helps bridge the gap between the early game to the late game. It's a great mid-game play, blocks, draws a card, digs you deeper to your combo. It can also be aggressive against the less interactive decks. So that is why I really like Rogue Refiner. Second, we're playing green because of Bounty of the Luxa. Now let's read it. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, remove all flood counters from Bounty of Luxa. If no counters were removed this way, put a flood counter on Bounty of Luxa and draw a card. Otherwise, add 3 mana to your mana pool. So this card also bridges the gap between, early game and late game, and lets you really, first of all, if you're having mana trouble, still hit Approach of the Second Sun with about 4 mana in play. And it can also just churn through your deck, right? So every other turn you draw a card, and then every other turn you get 3 mana to your mana pool. But this deck wouldn't be that great if you had nothing to use that mana for, right? Because just to cast Approach of the Second Sun and drawing an extra card every turn, that seems pretty bad, right? Well, with the recent set Hour of Devastation, a card called Champion of Wits came out. And this card is insane. I think it's probably one of the best card that came out of Hour of Devastation, if not the best. And it reads, when Champion of Wits enters the battlefield, you may draw cards equal to its power. If you do, discard 2 cards. Right? So it's kind of this faithless looting style card. But it's also a creature, so it can block, it can attack, it can do a whole bunch of things. But not only that, it has Eternalize. For 7 mana, you can exile a card from your graveyard, exile this card from your graveyard, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 4/4. So now when it comes back, you draw 4 cards and discard 2 cards. Now, that costs 7 mana, which is actually very doable for this deck in conjunction with Bounty of Luxa. You get that 3 extra mana, and suddenly Champion of Wits Eternalize becomes a very easy task to do, much earlier than turn 7, which, is incredible to, first of all, dig towards Approach of the Second Sun, or if you've already cast it, then you now just dug 4 cards deeper into your deck towards Approach of the Sun, so you drew a card for that turn, cast Eternalized Champion with draw 5 cards. Maybe you cycled a Censor, cycled a Cast Out, cast a Strategic Planning, and then cast Approach of the Second Gun. It's kind of this combo is a very loose term, but it's very easy to chain a couple of turns where you're not just drawing cards, but you're actually putting a body on the board and basically putting your opponent on a 1-turn clock for Approach of the Second Sun, which is crazy. And trust me, I've tested the deck. This build here has come through after a lot of testing. But with that said, let's talk about another couple pieces of the deck. Attune with Aether is a great turn 1, turn 2 fixer, especially because we're using the Aether Hub mana base. And we also have Rogue Refiner to increase our energy count. So I really like this green engine of ensuring land drops, ensuring colors, making sure that you just, can hit your land drops. And what's great about these, and let's talk about Primal Druid too. When Primal Druid dies, you may search your library for a basic land, put onto the battlefield, tap, and shuffle your library. If you're familiar with Standard right now, you know that Ramnap Red and Zombies are two of the biggest decks in Standard right now, and they're very, very aggressive. So Primal Druid, while is not a card that I would necessarily want to play, all the time, it's great right now because it dies, fixes your mana, absorbs damage, ramps you, and hitting your land drops. So we're a deck that relies on casting 4, 5, 7 mana spells. So hitting these land drops is really, really important, as well as mitigating life loss to actually be able to survive to take advantage of our late game spells. We also have 4 Sensors, which is a great counterspell, but not only is it a great counterspell early in the game to interact with your opponent, it's also a great cycler. And it's a one blue mana cycle, which after you cast Approach of the Second Sun, the closer you can get to that 7 card off the top of your deck, the closer you are to winning. So early game, it's great for countering. Mid game, it's great for sometimes countering, sometimes drawing a card. Late game, it's very important to turbo out this Approach to the Second Sun. We play 2 Declaration in Stone just because it's important to have some interaction in the early game. It's also a great way to kill Hazoret, a great way to kill tokens, as well as Graveyard Matter style creatures. Strategic Planning, another great card that I really enjoyed playing. I had 4 before. I added an extra Supreme Will instead of the 4th one, just because this can also counter a spell while looking 1 card deeper into your deck. But both are fantastic cards in the craft your hand, counter spells, dig for that Fumigate. So let's talk about Fumigate too. We run 4 of it. Fumigate is great right now. In matchups where it's bad, you have these discard outlets like Champion of Wits to, just get rid of them from your hand and draw into other live threats. But it's very live in a lot of matchups, and that life gain that you get from it is actually so relevant. So destroy all creatures. If you have a Primal Druid in play, you also get to ramp. And because most of our creatures here, first of all, Champion of Wits can get value from the graveyard, and Rogue Refiner already draws a card after it comes into play, you don't become down a card after you sweep the board, which is what is really great about Fumigate in this build. And then, last but not least, we play Cast Out. It's just a great card to answer a lot of what's going on in the meta right now, especially like non-creature permanents like Chandra, Gideon. It's important to have an answer for those cards because they're very difficult to handle in these colors outside of Cast Out. So with that said, I'm very excited to try out the deck in this Under the Microscope. We'll talk about the sideboard in just a second, but that's the main gist of the deck and how it aims to win in Game 1. Game 2 is when you start sideboarding, and in Standard, you do have some tricky matchups. First of all, God Pharaoh's Gift is a really difficult matchup, which is why we have 2 Crook of Condemnations. While even though it can hurt our very own Champion of Wits, I think it's a really important card to have in the sideboard right now because that deck is just very powerful. It will go over the top of what you try to do, and it also plays blue, which means they can run negates and they can shut off your entire combo. So being able to keep up with them is very important. I play 4 negates to dispel because the blue-red / control matchup is very, very difficult. So you play 2 dispel, 4 negate, plus a Sphinx of the Final Word, which basically lets your approaches be uncounterable as well as your counter spells. Really helps beat the blue mirror match. You have 2 Sunscorched Champion because this card is a great mid-game play against mono red, as well as 2 Blessed Alliance, also a great early to mid-game play against mono red. Can also deal with Hazoret. Very, very difficult card to beat. And then we have 1 more Deck in Stone, 1 more Cast Out. Again, similarly for these Planeswalker or other type decks, Deck in Stone for decks that sometimes go wide with tokens or Graveyard Matters or Indestructible like Hazoret. I like having an extra piece of like exile spell rather than destroy spell to handle what's going on in the meta right now. So hopefully that gives you an overview of what the deck does. 23 lands with 4 tunes should be plenty, especially with 4 Primal Druids too. So mana is usually not an issue. But yeah, so that's going to be our video here today. Thank you so much for watching this deck tech, and stay tuned for the first round of our very first standard under the Microscope series here with Bant Approach. See you soon. What's up, guys? Welcome to the first match here with Bant Approach in Standard. Looks like we won the die roll, and yes, we would love to play first. Let's take a look at our opening hand here. Poof! That's a lot of lands. Hopefully that's a big enough size for you guys. It's risky, right? Because we're not doing much, but we are hitting land drops, which is important for this deck. The same, and we have summoner action. In Standard, it's so you can get away with this sometimes, but more often than not, you can't. So I'm going to go ahead and mulligan. In this hand, a little better. Like, we can keep this. One more land, and we're set. I'm going to go ahead and bottom this Rogue Refiner, just because we want to find another land. But overall, we're landing a turn 2 Primal Druid, hopefully a turn 3 Rogue Refiner. And hopefully, you know, we'll end up casting Fumigate to a good extent here. Irrigated Farmland indicates to me I'm probably up against blue-white control, in which case there's no rush on this Primal Druid, and a turn 3 Rogue Refiner might be better. So let's go ahead and attune. Dun, 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 get an island. Now, I believe we're playing 1 Port Town in the list, so technically it's better to play this Aether Hub. And I know we're revealing a little bit of information, but it may help in regards to curving out. Our opponent may be holding up Censor here, in which case I still think I want to run out Rogue Refiner. Champion might actually be the more useful card here. And looks like Rogue Refiner resolved, so that's a good sign. And we got another Rogue Refiner coming up. So in this matchup, landing a Bounty of Luxa is going to be really important. Wow, is our opponent stuck on 2 lands here? Ooh, cancel. That's very strange. Let's go ahead and start with Intact. If they want to tap out, they can be my guest. And let's go ahead and cast a tune. Get a forest here. Wow, that's I probably maybe should have read that, right? I imagine it was pretty likely that they had something like that, but then again, if they want to use a negate that way, I feel like I'm okay with that. Okay, alright, well now I feel good that I didn't run out the second Rogue Refiner. Now let's go ahead and... It's tough, right? Because I want to pitch this Fumigate. And probably this Primal Druid too to hit some more lands. Now it is the less aggressive clock. Wow, no land still. Okay, I'm going to pitch one... Yeah, this is rough. So we're both kind of not hitting land drops here. Yeah, I feel like Fumigate is going to be more dead than Primal Druid. Alright, so, you know, both of us are a bit of a slump here. Alright, our opponent hits their 3rd land, which means that if we don't start hitting lands, wow. Another Primal Druid, you say, huh? Definitely not the same thing as a land. Question here, do we run out Rogue Refiner into Counter Magic, or do we just crack the clue? And I think we'd rather just crack, or unless our opponent makes a move here. If our opponent makes a move, I'm... Huh. Yeah, that's fine. Trade here. Now I feel kind of like an idiot throwing away Fumigate, but the spell would probably... Alright, so they didn't even block. Wow, that's very interesting. Let's just go ahead and run out Rogue Refiner. Hopefully we can hit a land here. Sweet. So that's a land. Definitely what we want to see. And our opponent concedes. Very, very interesting. All right. So it looks like they're on some sort of blue-white control plan here, which means we can add Sphinx, negates. I'm going to go ahead and cut Fumigate. Even though we saw Spell Queller, I'm going to cut the Declaration Stones, and I'm just going to keep Cast Out as my removal spell of choice. Actually, I think some number of Primal Druids. I feel like actually especially without Fumigates, all Primal Druids can go. So let's go ahead and keep Cast Out in here as it can cycle. And now we could add in like just more value threats. Sunscorched Champion, just to clock our opponent. And I think that would be more useful than a Declaration Stone, especially against control. We don't know if they're on a Gear Hulk plan. They probably are, but I'm just going to go ahead and run without it for now. But we should have the tools we need to beat blue-white control. It's a matter, like, our whole deck, aside from Cast Out, is pretty live. Yeah, screw that up. Kinda did, opponent. Kinda did. That's alright. It's a land-heavy hand, but we have Negate. We have a Tune. Means we're hitting land drops for a while. Sunscorched Champion, that's a threat, so definitely excited about that. So, question is, do we probably want another green source, as we have 2 blue, 2 white, and an Aether Hub. Oh, actually, we had the Botanical Sanctum, so it doesn't really matter. A land's a land. This deck doesn't have too many, too difficult of mana requirements outside of Fumigate, which we're not playing, at least post-board, which is nice. Cool. Another Botanical Sanctum. Next turn, we can run out Sunscorched Champion, and then we can Eternalize it on turn 4. If, of course, I assume it gets countered. It's possible it could just get Spell Quellered, which would feel pretty bad considering how much removal we took out. Keeping up Negate and cycling Scattered Groves may also be a fine choice. The question is, are they going to play out Spell Queller regardless of what we do? If they have it. And if they have it, next turn we can go Negate plus Scattered Groves, so it's not the worst thing in the world. Whether they have a counterspell for this, it's almost certain that they do. Considering we saw Cancel in their main deck, I have no doubt they have a counterspell. Alright, so they had the Spell Queller, kind of what we were worried about, but not the end of the world here. Alright, 4 mana, that is Glimmer mana. So yes, Sunscorched getting exiled, worst case scenario. I'm going to hold Champion of Wits just for a little bit longer. Reason being, I want to play it with Negate up, and I also want to negate like a Glimmer of Genius or something like that if it gets cast. Here we're definitely going to cycle Scattered Groves. Let's go ahead and cycle that. Just try to hit some action. Strategic planning, arguably action, right? Blue, green, white. Let's go ahead and run out Champion here. We have Negate up. Of course, Spell Queller, again, would be worst case scenario. And here we can pitch some of these extra lands. Alright. Actually, we can pitch a Sunscorched. Yeah, that'll let us... Let's see. I kind of want to keep this forest so I can put in Fortified Village untapped. But at this point, it might just be irrelevant. So I kind of want to discard this forest. Because from this point on, untapped lands is pretty nice. Interestingly enough, our opponent didn't attack last turn. Not sure why they wouldn't attack. Now they're definitely not attacking, though, I imagine. As foretold. Is that even worth negating? Let's try. Let's try to negate it. We have cast out in the deck in case for any shenanigans. Alright, so there goes one. No counterspell is interesting. I wonder what our opponent is sitting on. Bounty of Luxa. Now that's something I would have liked to have negate for. That this is a card that can single-handedly win us the game. So what I'm gonna do here is try to cast it. This kind of plays around Censor, but I imagine they don't have Censor. I imagine they don't have any counterspell unless they're really worried about what I do on my turn and they're holding up counterspell. In which case, it's very possible that they have something here. Another spell queller, of course. Worst case scenario. Cancel. Okay. And here we're gonna get in for 2 damage because if they block, we can Eternalize next turn. If they don't, it's 2 damage. Let's go ahead and cast Strategic Planning here and hope to hit some gas. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I guess Supreme Will. Definitely the better card out of the two, and next turn we can, if we want, either Eternalize Champion or Eternalize the Sunscorched Champion. Both are equally acceptable plays, I would say. It depends whether we want to hold up Supreme Will. I think our opponent should definitely attack here. Bant does not have haste threats. And if our opponent plays nothing here, but if they do play something, it's going to feel a little bad. Alright, they don't play anything. Great. So they don't play anything makes me want to Eternalize the Sunscorched Champion. White, white. Make sure to just bluff a blue. Discard this Fortified Village. Or bluff any color, basically. Just, make them think a little bit longer. Now we can hold up Supreme Will for something like Torrential Gear Hulk or any weird shenanigans that our opponent may be playing right now. So that's not something our opponent can cancel or counter, unless they have Dissolve, which they could have done. But now we're both at 20, both at 7 mana. They're at 3 cards. I'm on 2 cards. So now they're on 4 cards. So they're kind of winning that fight, but I have the faster creature on the board. So this will either force them to interact with it or do something that makes this obsolete. In terms of blue-white control, I'm not sure what they could do. They could have, like I said, Gear Hulk, Glimmer, as foretold, maybe I shouldn't have negated that. Maybe that was very unnecessary. Did make me a little uneasy, though. Alright, no attack. Very odd. Makes me think that they're going to block it. Regardless, we're just going to start with an attack because there's very little things we do pre-combat. And again, with our opponent keeping up a ton of mana, I don't want to run into a counterspell. At the same time, I'm okay tapping out at this point. Sure, so they had the Dissolve. But maybe that'll mean we can resolve Bounty next turn. Alright, so there are 2 lands. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, so they have Approach as well. That's very interesting. So this is blue-white Approach, I see. With As Foretold. Very interesting. So, here we'll start with an attack. And if they have the other approach in hand. That would be, of course, like worst case scenario. Plus, like if they have negate as well, like approach plus negate, blowout, absolute blowout. But hopefully next turn we can draw an extra card, maybe draw towards negate, and that'll. If we can't draw towards negate, we can at least strategic planning for something like that off the top 3 cards of our deck. All right, so our opponent's going to attacks here. They go ahead and pass. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, we'll try to counter it. If they have the counter, they have it. There's nothing we can do about that. I'm ready to press the concede button. All right, so we got that. Now they're still few cards away from the top of their deck, so we have to be careful. With that said, let's go ahead and start simple. They're blocking. Do they have Fumigate? They might have Fumigate. I'll cast it, of course. If they have something like Fumigate, I probably don't want to run these out. I kind of want to get the second sun out of my hand. So this is great. Mirror match for the very first match here, basically. So now we got to remember they are 2 cards into their deck, so it's the 7th card. So in 4 draws, they'll have it. Ah, it has the same name, so it gets both. Very interesting. That's cool. Wow, negate is a fantastic draw. Let's go ahead and start with Champion of Wits. And we can discard probably a Rogue Refiner and a Lumbering Falls. As nice as a manland is here, I don't think we need it. Let's go ahead and run out a Rogue Refiner, and now we can keep up negate plus Clue Crack. Oh, now we have double negate. Now I feel like we're in a ridiculously good position. We're drawing 2 cards a turn. Clue brings us actually closer to approach, and yeah, our opponent concedes. Maybe they drew back-to-back lands and things like that, but we had a pretty good position in that game. So that was the first round. That was against Blue-White Approach, kind of the mirror. Not really. Bounty definitely gives us an edge as well as these early creatures. But yeah, thanks for watching the first match here with Bant Approach, and stay tuned for the next round. See you soon.